Dear Simon, Joe and Bobby, my story takes place in... I think you might relate to different aspects of this story. It's a seasonal story. My story takes place in summer during the school exam period, when I was working as a supply teacher at a rather unpleasant school. After a tough day at work, I would cheer myself up at home with a glass of wine or two on my sunny balcony. However, being a redhead with easily burnt skin, I was never able to get a natural tan. One night I remembered I had a bottle of self-tan in the bathroom. Ever used self-tan, Bobby?
Many times.
Oh, there you go.
Yep, all been there.
Yeah.
All right. So I found it in the bathroom and thought maybe a golden glow might perk me up a bit. One glass of wine, and one application later, I stood slightly darker and a little bit streaky. Well, this probably isn't very good, I thought, and using my alcohol-induced logic, maybe I should put on another layer for a darker look.
Why would you do that?
And so another glass of wine and another application later, I stood fully satisfied in anticipation of seeing the actual results after it had time to develop overnight. There's the key thing. It's the developing overnight bit that you have to be scared of. The next morning I got out of bed and stood in front of the mirror and gasped at the results. I was deepest mahogany. I headed to the shower to wash off the excess, and after drying, the darker, streaky sludge colour had washed away to reveal a rather gorgeous deep orange. I basically looked like an Oompa Loompa. I tried to wash the orange off my face, but to no avail, and time was running out. I had an exam to invigilate that morning, and I had to head into school. Actually, I've just remembered I used some of my sister's false tan when I was at school, which was a little bit, the age of 13. Sorry, sister. Anyway, so here's tea, invigilating at school. My suit covered most of the orange, but I couldn't hide my face. However, once in school, none of the staff mentioned anything, so I thought, well, maybe it's all in my head, how orange I am. Anyway, once in the English exam, the students concentrated on the task in hand with their heads down. Mostly. You see, this school was a rather, shall we say, gritty school, and some pupils didn't take kindly to GCSEs, so they didn't take them very seriously. One girl nearby was particularly keen on, shall we say, not working at all. I noticed this and went to stand by her in the hope of shutting this behaviour down wordlessly and stop it spreading any further. She was particularly stroppy when she saw me, and then she looked at my face. And her expression ran through bafflement, then shock, then puzzlement, then disbelief, then realisation, then amusement, and finally, hysteria. I could tell she was obviously very excited. She could see exactly what I had tried to do with the cheap fake tan last night, and she was absolutely determined to share this spectacle and humiliate me. This was a golden opportunity to destroy a supply teacher on a plate, but this was an exam, and she was initially conflicted. However, she soon began to laugh out loud and attempted to gesture to anyone nearby, pointing at me. Look at her! Luckily, a teacher stepped in, but she was now causing a big disturbance, and within seconds, the other invigilators escorted her out of the hall as she was yelling, "But sir, she's bright orange! Look at her, she's like a streaky orange thing!" I pretended to be very puzzled and walked in the opposite direction. I never knew what happened to her, because I'm a supply teacher, so I didn't bother checking up. I don't know what became of the incident, but I imagine disturbing a public exam was pretty serious for her, so my guess is she'd have had to re-sit because of her hilarity at my misfortune. Mind you, resitting? Nah, don't think she'd have been bothered. I spent the rest of the day in the shadows, avoiding as much face-to-face contact as I possibly could. By the next day, my Oompa Loompa orange had faded to a slightly more reasonable David Dickinson, and I learnt my lesson. Here's the thing, this is what it boils down to, kids. Don't drink and self-tan.
Yep.
Just like it's not from the girl who was most unpleasant and had no intention of doing her exam anyway, or the unfriendly staff who had to deal with her, but from the pupils who were disturbed during their English exam that day, who no doubt heard about the strange orange invigilator. The legend of the orange invigilator continues to this day. Thank you, T. I suspect there are going to be quite a few fake tan stories, quite a few problems with the invigilator and taking the exam stories, confessions@bbc.co.uk. Joe, what do you make of that, first of all?
Yeah, as was noted, never drink and tan. That's such a ridiculous thing to do. But we've all done it. We've all been there. I tend to prefer to let somebody else tan me. I think that's the
Is that right?
that's the advice.
How does
thing.
that work out?
You just basically strip naked and you stand there and somebody sprays you. That's the most sensible thing to do. You have to make sure they've not been drinking as well, of course.
Right. Do they have like a special machine or?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they have special machines.
They don't squirt it on, like you maybe from the garden, thing for squirting, getting rid of
like fertilizer, weeding,
that kind of thing.
It's very much like being weeded. Exactly. Now you have somebody there, and then they kind of start at the top, and then they work all the way down. Then they tell you to turn around, and then they work all the way.
Learning so much. Anyway, but so is that
back to the confessions,
yes.
though? Yeah, I think. Well, it is something that everybody has done. We've all been there, and so therefore I think I will forgive, because I'm sure there wasn't that much disruption to the other kids.
What do you think, Bobby?
Well, I wonder if the T stands for Tangoed, if anyone remembers the 90s adverts you've been.
Yes.
So that's
More
what I was
placement.
thinking. Obviously, other soft drinks are available. But the other thing about this, I think I've done this, and the problem is, of course, is you fall in love with the potential. The idea that tomorrow you could wake up a nice, lovely, dusky colour and it will look gorgeous. That's the problem. That is always the kind of lure. What happens is you're meant to exfoliate and moisturise before, which, of course, most people don't want to do.
Yeah, you have to moisturise the knuckles and the wrists and all those areas.
And your knees go orange. That's what I've noticed. I have a woman with orange knees, yes, because it's too... That's where
I don't even understand this conversation.
I know, I thought you wouldn't. So anyway, but Misty, I'm going to forgive you, because of course you meant well, and it's hilarious, and poor you, the embarrassment. What can you do? You can only wash off so much. So of course you're absolutely forgiven in this case.
We'll sorry, yes, Joe.
No, I was just going to say, it obviously brings to mind the Friends episode, which you have to mention when you're talking about tanning, and the booth in which Ross went in and was sprayed umpteen times, and then was again the David Dickinson orange.